Folks, welcome back to another episode of Mayhem in the Midsouth. Our episode today, Have Copter Will Escape. Alright folks, we're going to be in the great state of South Carolina, just a few miles south of Greenville, and just about a rock's throw away from Spartanburg. Now this is about the 1985 prison escape from Perry Correctional Institution. Now the unusual thing about this particular prison escape is it was committed using a helicopter. It's December 19th, 1985. An auburn-haired female, who witnesses would later say was wearing jeans and cowboy boots and a red jacket. She arrives at the Palmetto helicopter charter service there in Greenville. She came in and chartered a helicopter for a 10:15 a.m. flight. Well, the pilot, who was a Vietnam vet, flew helicopters in the war. He lifts off and he's got his passenger. Well, things kind of go south when she reaches down and pulls a pistol out of her cowboy boot. And she tells the pilot that you need to fly us over there to Perry Correctional. Now, I believe that is was a medium security prison. So they fly on down that way, get to the prison. Now this prison holds about 1,100 inmates. Now it pretty well looked like a direct shot from the heliport where they left to the prison. And they came in, resource material says, over the perimeter fence opposite of where the guard tower was. At this particular time, there was only one guard tower, and it looks like it was over there on the west side, southwest side. Now the pictures I pulled up recently here, it looks like they added another guard tower there towards that southeast side of the prison. So the pilot, he puts that chopper down there in the grass in the recreation yard between the dorms and the perimeter fence. Now, prison officials would later estimate that the helicopter was on the ground for less than 90 seconds. Now, initially they had a bunch of inmates run to the helicopter. Now, 5 prisoners actually got onto the helicopter or got in it. Now, the scary thing about this helicopter is you're only going to fit 2 or 3 people in there. Now, not only the inmates running to the helicopter, you got 2 unarmed prison guards are running that way, and then you got 4 armed perimeter guards that are moving to that direction as well. Now, during the escape, prison officials said that one of the guards assigned to the perimeter patrol, he got out of his vehicle and he cranked off 5 pistol shots at the helicopter. He said now the guard in the tower, he didn't have a rifle, all he had was a shotgun. He fired a round or 2 at the helicopter. None of the rounds hit the helicopter though. Now, one of the inmates that got on the helicopter, he's telling the pilot, let's go, get us out of here. And he's hollering at him saying, it won't lift off. Because you're talking about, you've got the pilot, the passenger with the pistol, and then you got 5 inmates all hanging off of here and there and the other. It's too much weight. Now, one of the prison guards gets over there and he's trying to yank inmates out of the helicopter. Now, somebody inside the helicopter, not sure who, shot the guard in the face. Now, evidently there was 3 inmates that were in on this escape because they took one of the inmates that was hanging on the helicopter and they pushed him off the helicopter. And a guard got up there and he grabbed one and pulled him off. Now, even with those 2 inmates off the helicopter, you still got a pilot, the female, and then you got 3 grown men in a aircraft that's only supposed to hold 3 passengers. Now, the helicopter, they said, just barely cleared the 12-foot fence. So the helicopter lumbers over the perimeter fence and heads off to parts unknown. So the helicopter, it lands behind Doc's saw shop, which is about 4 miles from the prison. Now, one of the inmates, he grabs the keys for the helicopter. The inmates and the female they start getting out, they're going to take off running. They tell the pilot to run the other way. Now, before he gets out of the helicopter, the female had $165, which is what it costs for a 1 hour flight in the helicopter. She stuffed that $165 in his pocket. Have a good day. Well, he heads over to that little business and he calls the police and tells them where he's at. Now, they leave in a silver-colored car. It wouldn't be too much longer after this now that they would find that first car abandoned. The inmates would leave from that second location in a blue Dodge van. Now, the prison guard that was shot, he pulled through. He was in pretty good shape. I think it's amazing. Take one in the face and you come out of it at least alive. I don't know how he did over the coming years. So now they got the FBI and the South Carolina State Police and the Sheriff's Department. They're all out of looking. Now the FBI is involved because hijacking that helicopter, that's air piracy. Now they checked the prison records and they figured out who that female was because she'd last been in there just about 6 days before the escape. They also found out that she'd paid a couple of her neighbors to drive some of the getaway cars to the locations where they could pick them up. I can just see me walking up to a neighbor here and saying, hey, look, I'm going to break my boyfriend out of prison and 2 of his inmate buddies, and I want you to help me park some getaway cars. Location where they swapped getaway cars, that was over there on Four Shoals Road and Old Augusta Road at a convenience store. Now, that car was about 7 miles from the original landing spot for the helicopter. Now, the 3 desperados that this female helped break out of the can, one was serving a life sentence for murder and larceny and burning an automobile. Now, he got all those charges in the murder of a high school teacher. Now, the second fella, he was serving a 23-year sentence for armed robbery, contempt of court, attempted escape. And the third one, he was doing 40 years for armed robbery, receiving stolen property, assault, battery, intent to kill. Now, what the sheriff said during one of those news conferences, he says, well, they don't have any guns, but it's not going to take them long to get some. And the only thing they had to go on was that 1977 blue Dodge Aspen. That's all they knew. Now, they knew all 3 of these escapees, they were all from that Greenville, Spartanburg area. Now, that helicopter pilot, the old Vietnam vet, now he said he was, at first he's pretty shocked when that woman pulled that pistol on him, told him to fly me over to the prison. And he said at one time he thought about jumping her, overpowering her once he got down on the ground there in the prison. But he said what concerned him was she didn't seem too nervous about any of it. Said she acted pretty nonchalant. Maybe she wasn't intelligent enough to know she should be scared. But he said he didn't want to take his hands off the controls, and he just figured it's just going to go bad to worse if he did that. So he just did what he was told. He said now the second time he got scared was when they landed in that field. Because he said, well, basically, if they're going to kill me, they're going to do it now. So he was happily shocked when they just told him to take off running. Now the owner of the helicopter company, he told the media, he said, well, that's a huge 300C chopper. And he said, there's no way that thing should have got off the ground with that much weight on it. Now, sometime around December 22nd, so we're talking about 3 days after the escape, the escapees, they popped up near Mobile, Alabama. They're on Interstate 10. Now, they had broke down, and a good Samaritan had stopped to help them. Well, they stuck a pistol on him, and they left their old car there on the interstate, and they all rode in his car, and they went to a local motel right there just outside of Mobile. And they loaded all their stuff up in his car, but they were nice enough now. They dropped him off there in town, and of course he called the police. Now that was around 2:30 in the morning on the 22nd. Now this Good Samaritan later said that they were showing him paper clippings of the news about them being escapees, and that they had vowed never to be taken alive. Now they said inside their abandoned van there on Interstate 10, police said had spent a couple of nights in Defuniak Springs. Now what amazes me about them staying anywhere along that interstate in a hotel, I cannot believe the police weren't checking all them hotels. I can't believe they'd stayed there, because according to the resource material, they were there for possibly 2 days. But in any event, so it's just about a day later, after they've made their escape out of Mobile. So the police, I don't know if it was a Camden County deputy or if it was the Georgia Highway Patrol, but one of them drives through the welcome station there on I-95, which is about 2 miles from the Florida state line. And I could almost bet you a quarter he was looking for that Good Samaritan's car that had been taken. Well, sure enough, now he finds that car, runs that tag, and verifies that it's stolen. Now, the way I understand this resource material, evidently that whether it was the highway patrolman or the deputy, they were smart enough not to turn on their overhead police lights and try to take action right there on their own, which is a good thing. They got on the radio and called for some help. So when they finally tap on the glass with their pistol and tell everybody in the car to get out, there's 3 Camden County deputies and that highway patrolman. And these 3 desperados that had vowed they wouldn't be taken alive, they surrendered post haste, which shows that they're not totally stupid. So now they're facing charges in multiple states. Now the feds, they brought that female and the males, they had indicted them all for air piracy. I do know that the female, she got a 40-year sentence for air piracy.